Howdy, ladies and gentlemen. This is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Thomas Jefferson said, "If you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do something you've never done." Benjamin Franklin said, "Without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning." Basically, get off your duff, get to working, you've got dreams, you've got goals, you've got to do what it takes to get them. Like, subscribe, comment, show what your opinion is. Let me know if you like what you've seen. And I thank you for your support. If you folks want to contact me via social media or help me out via my Patreon, it's all down below in my link tree. I haven't added this yet. I'm going to have a Substack article down below if you want to see the information about natural resources that I am going to cover in this story. That's all going to be in that Substack. Links, everything. Okay, so I've been listening to some of these folks talking about the areas hit hard by Helene up in the mountains. And some of them folks are talking about land grabs. And let me tell you something, as a redneck from them hills, land is one of those things that you take personal. If you own property up there, it don't matter if it's a side of a mountain that barely has any value to anybody else, it's your land. That's where you put your home. That's a big deal. Hillbillies, rednecks, all of them. Land is valuable. It don't matter if it's 5 acres, 1 acre, 100 acres. It's all valuable to them. So I started hearing about this land grab because of resources. I got to investigate. And now some of the stuff I heard, I'm not that worried about it, but it's still, I thought I'd look into it because you never know what could happen. So let me get into it real quick. Why I at first heard about the land grabs was a little worried, and then I got thinking about it, thinking about what I know of my area that I grew up in. One, there are two land grabs that happened that angered a lot of people. First one, after the Civil War, most people aren't aware of this area's history with the Civil War. In them mountains, there were actually two opposing groups. One actually supported the Union. There were even folks in Tennessee that organized units that joined with the Union Army. This is how divided it was in East Tennessee. And some of this was in Western Carolina too. It was so bad that the Confederate Army didn't trust every unit that came out that they grabbed out of East Tennessee. This is history. You can look this up. Well, after the Civil War, you had those two groups feuding with each other. The folks that fought for the Union, those folks that fought for the Confederacy were fighting with each other. And then you had the carpetbaggers come in. So you had three groups fighting with each other because the carpetbaggers were trying to take up land. Well, that made a lot of people angry. They were already feuding with their neighbors. Now they're having a feud with these folks coming from up north. It wasn't a good situation. Made a lot of people angry. I'm old enough that I knew grandchildren of Civil War people, and these folks talk about carpetbaggers, and I'd heard that term many times growing up. The next situation was when TVA came in to make all them lakes, make the dams, set up all the electrification of East Tennessee. They took that land, they took a lot of land, took a lot of farms. And after they flooded the lands and they did whatever they were going to do, they ended up selling all the land that didn't get flooded to developers. So what used to be farmland, what used to be family-owned farmland, got turned into fancy pants golfing communities and just these ritzy areas that the rednecks and the hillbillies couldn't afford. And that had been their land before all the flooding and all that from the dams. So I remembered that history and I realized some of these folks may not know what they're talking about, which is what led me to want to investigate, do a little fact checking. And the second part on this is the simple fact of that some of the stuff that they were talking about, I'm like, okay, that sounds interesting, but I hadn't heard any of the folks around there talking about some of this stuff. So I wanted to know what exactly they were talking about. So I looked it up. And here's what I found on the resource side. Now, when I was looking this up, one of the things that I found odd was I was looking into information about natural resources that had been found around East Tennessee, Western Carolina, and the southwestern part of Virginia. All three of these areas were hit. And I looked it up, Appalachian Basin, um, which covers part of Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Maryland, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. Now, this area has been found to have petroleum and natural gas. Well, I looked it up. Not so much of it's in the affected area. There's a little bit here and there. It's mostly around what's known as the Marcellus and Utica Shale. Some of it's like a very, very little bit of it is in the affected area. So I ain't really worried about this at all, even though I looked it up. It's in the article that I got. So I'm not worried about that part of it. Now, another thing that I found when I was looking up the natural resources, and I knew about some of this, Appalachian clay, sand, feldspar, salines, and other mineral commodities have long been utilized by Eastern industry. This is all coming from quarries and beyond, like marble, granite, things like that is already known about. All those areas that's got the mining for this stuff that goes into building houses and all this other utilization, this is already known about. This was known long ago. There ain't going to be no land grab for this. The land that's got this is already handled. The folks that have it, it's not a worry. So this, I'm not worried about. This isn't even a full topic. People know about this. So if anybody brings this up and talking about this is already a known quantity and not that big of a deal. Now, the main thing to have to be concerned with in the affected areas is quartz. There's already two companies that are mining quartz in the Appalachians. They're both in North Carolina, but they reached over into Tennessee somewhat. One's Sibelco and the other one's at Quartz Corp. Sibelco actually announced last year they were going to invest $200 million in the region on top of what they were already doing. This is at Spruce Pine. They are already there. Any other company that tries to move in, they're going to have to deal with the fact that the best places are already taken by these two major corporations. So if you got a bunch of quartz on your property, you might have to worry about it. But reading this, it sounds like anybody that's already got quartz on their property, they've probably already been talked to by Sibelco and Quartz Corp. This should handle a lot of this issue. Sibelco's already said, hey, right now we're just worried about our employees. And Quartz Corp is probably doing the same thing. Sibelco released a statement Please rest assured that Sibelco is actively collaborating with government agencies and third-party rescue and recovery operations to mitigate the impact of this event and to resume operations as soon as possible. Quartz Corp wrote, our top priority remains the health and safety of our employees and their families. So Spruce Pine is where these folks are located at. Spruce Pine Quartz is used around the world to manufacture the equipment needed to make silicone chips that underpin all our digital devices. So they know what's there. Spruce Pine is some of the best. It's already being mined. So if you got quartz on your property, you might have to worry about a third party, but I doubt it because you're moving into a region that's already being mined. So this might be the only possibility to worry about. But we got one more thing to talk about. Okay, something that was brought up by a feller that I had not heard about. And so I went looking into, this is the main reason I went looking into everything, was lithium. I've already covered lithium when I was dealing with the Arizona tribe. Well, it seems that the lithium is around, or is in areas around where everything was affected. And I'm sure that some of these folks got hit in the southern part, but it isn't really where the main part of the Helene damage was done. Now, I talked about the Marcellus and Utica areas. That's one of the areas that's got a lot of lithium. That's north of where everything was affected. South of there in Gaston County, North Carolina. Now, these folks, they've got some lithium down there. This is a big deal down there. They got a lot of lithium down that way, but that's south. And the mining startup Piedmont Lithium is taking care of that down there. So lithium isn't something I'd worry about so much. I don't know why this guy brought it up. I guess he looked up resources that people could be trying to steal by land grabs, but lithium is not something, from what I'm seeing, is a concern that anybody's got to have, because you've got Gaston County, which is south. That area wasn't as badly hit. And you've got north of there in the Marcellus and Utica area. Those two, that basin area and Gaston, those are where you got to worry about it. You ain't got to worry about it up in the mountains. So if you've heard this, then that's what you've got to worry about. You don't have to worry about the lithium so much. I'm glad that this turned out to be a little bit more positive of a research topic than the other ones that I'm going to be covering this week. I'm already not happy about the other topics I got to cover, but this one, thankfully, was more of a fact check than it was actual worry. But if you're from East Tennessee, if you're from Western Carolina, you understand what I'm talking about when I say that hearing about a land grab is going to get your haunches up. Any of us that come from old families are going to dislike hearing that somebody's going to be trying to do a land grab. Now, most people are going to dislike it when they hear that somebody might be offering them pennies on the dollar for their property. But in this case, I honestly don't think that the land grab is going to be that big of a deal. I don't think if it happens, it's going to be rare, and it won't be for the resources. Now, there's some ginseng farming up in there. Well, not farming, it's ginseng hunting. But I'm not real worried about the idea of land grabs. I'm thinking that these folks were looking at the Marcellus and Utica areas, and those areas, they probably would have had to worry about this. But yeah, I think this, thankfully, is a least negative story that I'll be doing this week. Actually, some of this is positive because we know that the quartz mine's probably going to get going again once everything's settled. So that means people still got jobs. Look, rednecks and hillbillies and those hill folk, as long as they got land, they'll be able to find a way to put somewhere to live on that land. They know how to do many jobs, and if they don't know how to do it, they know somebody they can get their hands on that will help them do what they don't know how to do. So this is not just as long as they have the land, it'll be good. Now, the older folks, they're going to need a lot more help. But those older folks should know the locals that they can get hold of to go, hey, I'm going to need a little help. And let me tell you, if you're from that area, you help your elders. You help those that are in need because we go to church with each other, we work with each other, we've spent time with everybody. Everybody knows everybody. We know who the best electrician is. We know who the best plumbers are. If we don't know how to do plumbing ourselves, we know who to get hold of. So as long as they can get everything cleared up, there's a lot of nastiness that's got to get cleared up. I'm not even, man, you got to pray for those people. They need some help. And some of the stories I'm going to be covering this week and probably in the next week, it ain't pretty, but thankfully this is one less worry, in my opinion. And I could be wrong, but I doubt that it's going to be a problem. This is one less worry for everybody. And yes, this would be a worry. You have no idea of the impact of land grabs in East Tennessee and West Carolina. You have no idea of how bad that puts a taste in your mouth, especially from some of them older folks that have been told from the folks from their family that actually had this happen to them. You have no idea of how bad they dislike the idea of a land grab. And I know that those older folks have passed it down to the younger generation. I know passed down to my generation. I know it's passed down to generations younger than me. So I thought I'd covered this one first because I thought this was a necessary topic to think about. This has been Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day now. And if you can, help these folks out that got affected by Helene. Bye now. Folks, I just want to say thank you for listening. I want to thank you for taking your time. I want to hear what your comments are about what you think on this topic because your comments are what's important, not necessarily mine. I don't care if you're Republican. I don't care if you're conservative. I don't care if you're liberal. I don't care if you're Democrat. I want to hear your opinion on these topics. I want to thank you yet again for listening to my video. Like, subscribe, and all that other hoopla. This has been Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day now. Bye.